So, focusing first on traditional networking, how I would define traditional networking would be any group event that's organized explicitly around networking. And these can be either professional, corporate, or after hours settings. So, one of the easiest examples to call to mind is conferences. There are typically group networking events throughout the day that's part of the conference, going to Hall C or Hall I for an hour-long networking session. Sometimes they're even built into lunch. So they'll have lunch plus networking. But there's also typically after-hour events at different social spots throughout the city that's hosting for small groups within the conference at large. So a lot of them will also be alumni events. If it's around a certain field, there'll also be after hours events for, say, all alumni of a certain university. I'd put those all under traditional networking events. Something that I would advise is to, one, reframe your mindset going into these events, to make them into something that you're more comfortable with, and to plan before the events to equally prioritize both success and enjoyment. If you don't equally prioritize your enjoyment, it can easily cause a networking event to be a very adverse experience, and that limits your desire to go to networking events in the future, and at best can make networking a chore, and at worst can make it something that you really dread. So first we'll talk about mindset going into traditional networking events. Something that a lot of people might go into with a mindset of you have to be there the whole time. It's an hour, you have to be there for the full hour. And you don't. You can leave a little early. You can also take breaks. I know a lot of people will say, well, taking breaks, I don't want to be the person who's just sitting there not talking to anyone, even if it's my choice, even if I'm kind of taking a moment to take a break before I jump back in. Bring a pen and like a notepad to, again, write down any contact information for anything that's going well. But also, it's a good thing to have, even if you're just writing down thoughts or just taking a moment to plan something else. It's a great way to take a break without calling attention to the fact that you're taking a break. And it's okay to mostly listen at these events as well. You don't need to judge your success or failure at these events based on how much information you're able to get across or how well you're able to pitch yourself to different companies or to different people. It's okay to mostly listen. In fact, people value being listened to and being heard and being asked to share their story. And sometimes they'll remember those just as well as someone who's able to really completely elevator pitch themselves perfectly. And it's also okay to not have one-on-one conversations. It's okay to mostly join group discussions if that's something that's more comfortable to you. It's a great way to just be part of the conversation, jump in when you have something to add, but also avoid those awkward lulls. And then planning beforehand, I think, is also really important to having the best experience networking. The first thing to think about is, how are you going to consider your success? What metrics are you going to use? And what are you comfortable with? And making it a manageable thing, something that's going to be achievable for you. So going in and saying, I want to make 5 new connections. If it's something that's very new to you, if networking events is something that you struggle with or get overwhelmed with, setting that kind of metric as your sole measure of success might not be the best idea. Like I said, you also want to prioritize your enjoyment. If it's something you're no longer comfortable with or something that you're not getting anything valuable out of, and it's just stressing you, it's okay to pull back. Setting in those measures of you want it to be an event you enjoy and that you would do again, and also take into account meeting new connections. Also think about what information do you want to get across. I find it helpful to have talking points going in to not end up in front of a person uncertain of what do I want to talk about. And also knowing some people that you want to meet and talk to among the attendees can be very helpful, rather than going in with a crowd that you're unfamiliar who you're going to see there. If you know that there's going to be a few people there that you have a little bit of background information on, or already have a little bit of a connection to, or just someone that you really want to meet, prioritize meeting those people as well, rather than walking into a room and looking for who looks like a friendly face that I can talk to. Also, how are you going to reward yourself afterwards? What are you going to do afterwards to give yourself that pat on the back for doing something that maybe you were not as excited about going in, or something that would be a little bit stressful. And then also plan on how you're going to follow up. Once you make those connections, how are you going to follow up? Make a LinkedIn connection, send a thank you note, follow up with them in a month or so, and just touch base. Even just a hello, you saw this and wanted to get your thoughts on it, or setting up an informational interview is a perfectly fine follow-up. But again, don't necessarily look at it as the number of connections you can make, but look at it as the number of strong connections that you're able to maintain.